woman's place is in the home, and I suppose as long as she's in the home, she might as well be in the kitchen.
She only says what your program gonna say. Yes, sir, you can use it to push your product, push your politics, or push your war. She's the girl back home every man is fighting.
For 72 years in their struggle to get the right to vote. Welcome to the new wave of feminism. Welcome to each other. Welcome home.
Desk. A new term, he-covery. That's what some economic analysts are calling what's happening in the U.S. job market. Since the official end of the recession in June 2009, men gained 768,000 jobs, while women have lost 218,000.
Pay gap among full-time workers around the world. But the size of the gender pay gap varies dramatically by country. Like in New Zealand, women working full-time make on average 90 cents for every dollar that a man working full-time makes, whereas in South Korea that number is just 62 cents. When it comes to calculating the pay gap in the United States, a lot depends on what exactly you're calculating. Like by hourly wage, the pay gap is about 16%. By weekly take-home pay, it's between 18 and 19%. By annual earnings, it's around 21%.
I'm not so, I mean, I don't agree with it, but I'm also knowing that it's changing. In my lifetime, it's gone up from what it used to be, and it is still predominantly a male's world when it comes to economics, anyway.
It's pretty stark, and I think about how unequal that is. And so, yeah, I think we need to do whatever we need to do to make sure that women in the same positions in jobs in society are being paid the same thing. There's no reason that they should be paid less for the same work.
In accounting and in law, you tend to be pretty driven, pretty hardcore type personalities, which I am not so much. And I think what I struggled with is if you are that way as a woman, do you tend to be labeled, do you tend to be called a bitch or something like that? That's not so positive. So that's a challenge, and that's something that's takes some balance.
College, and then in college, you know, when you're in college, you have lots of time to like care about things going on in the world, and so in college there was a huge movement that I became aware of, like feminist issues and women's issues, and became kind of educated myself and got interested in.
At that time, we're talking about colleges in the late 70s and early 80s. Pretty much the people that were in math and science were primarily males and not very many females. So I mean, you just got used to knowing that you were going to be one of the few females in a group of males. But other than that, it was fine.
Well, in law school, I think, you know, it's a pretty selective and competitive environment. And so I think there wasn't a whole lot of difference between the guys and the gals in the classes. The only thing I do remember in my first year of law school and our first semester final for criminal law class, a number of girls got A's. And I remember a number of the guys in the class being convinced that despite the anonymous exams, that the professor knew who the girls were and gave the girls A's instead of the guys.
I think that there's still different expectations for females than there is for males. I think that females are still expected to be the best student, and they're supposed to be paying attention more, whereas somehow it's allowed that males don't have to follow some of those same rules unless they're reinforced at home.
When we first had our daughters, I think both my wife and I were really conscious, like, we're not going to play, whatever the kids like, we're going to do everything we can to not force them, but, not have them fall into those patterns. Like, if one of my daughters like tanks and don't like Barbies, I was going to be totally, psyched with that. And not, encourage them to think about all, let's say, use toys as an example, like, doesn't matter what toys you play with. But what I found to be really interesting and strange is that in many ways my daughters sort of naturally have been drawn to that stuff that, had you asked me before I had kids, like, no, my daughter's not going to play with dolls and Barbies, right? Sure enough, both my daughters have Barbies or had Barbies, right? And so I found that to be really interesting, that in many ways I didn't want them to fit into those, pigeonholes of gender expectations as girls, but in some ways they have, naturally.
At the time, we thought it was best to not put our child in daycare all the time, that we wanted to be present. And so we decided that I would stay home and hopefully work into doing some work part-time from home while being there for our kids. Certainly slowed down my career path and track, but very worthwhile.